So, come and debrief this weekend's boxing with me. I'm going to try and make this a bit of a longer video as well, a bit more of a podcast style. So I'm going to focus on the weekend's boxing, but then talk a little bit more about the whole boxing scene in general. So, maybe get on with some chores, put this on in the background. But yeah, without further ado, let's talk about the weekend's action. So, for me, I want to talk about Keyshawn Davies because that was a statement. You know, we get a lot of people who, they defeat the guys they're supposed to defeat. They don't necessarily, look amazing doing it, or they don't light the world up. But that is a statement, The guy he fought just went 12 rounds with Richards and Hitchens, another champion in the division. And he's just, brutally knocked him out after about, 5-6 rounds? And he was 6 pounds. He came in like 6 pounds over the weight limit. Like, that is a real statement, That is the sort of thing that says, look, I'm here, I'm that guy, let me throw down the gauntlet. And he went tank next. And after that performance, who can argue with him? So I just wanted to start giving off some praise to Keyshawn Davies. I wasn't sure what type of level he was at before this fight, but now I'm like, oh yeah, this guy is that guy. So before I get going, I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe to the channel. I'm really trying to grow this boxing page, and let me know in the comments down below what sort of content you'd like to see from this channel. What do you feel like you don't understand from the boxing scene? Would you like me to do shorter videos, longer videos, more journalist style videos, boxing breakdowns? Let me know what sort of stuff you enjoy. And obviously the other big fight of the weekend was Boots Jaron Ennis versus Karen, I don't know how to say his last name. And obviously Bam Rodriguez was back. There wasn't too much to say about the Bam Rodriguez fight. He got the job done. He looked really good doing it. I think Eddie Hearn has found a real gem there. Really might help, restore his stable, bring some life back to it. He's on a bit of a losing streak at the moment. For me, for Jaron Ennis versus Karen, there were definitely some red flags there. You're looking at Karen and you're thinking, oh, this guy's got better. The first round, Jaron Ennis won about 12 rounds. Didn't really put up much of a fight. This time, the guy improved. Karen improved. He punched with Ennis. He caught him a few times. He found out Jaron's weaknesses. She was like, oh, this guy's got no defense. I can hit him when he hits me. He left it all in the ring. He had a proper fight. So, well done to Karen, It's great to improve and give it a go. But as I said, I think that's a bad thing for Jaron Ennis, right? You don't want to get worse in your performances, do you? If you won every round in the first fight, you want to get better. You don't want to stagnate, do you? You want to go for the finish. You want to get him out of there. So I would say it's a little bit concerning for Ennis that he looked a little bit worse than the last fight. Like, obviously you can just say Karen's got better, but you think for Jaron Ennis, you want to see some type of improvement. You want to see a statement win, especially now Crawford's out of the division. The other champions aren't that well known, Hitchinson, Parro, Norman Jr. Parro's a decent name, to be fair, but the other two guys, not the biggest names in the world. This is your time to make a statement. Say, I am that guy, throw down the gauntlet. A little bit underwhelming, but, he got the job done. Not every fight can be a 12 round, can be like a demolition job. But all in all, a decent card. But I would still say there is some questions as to whether Ennis is going to be a pound for pound start. And I feel there's always a bit of an asterisk over the fact that, he's currently the best in the division. Because you think if Crawford was still there, you'd think Crawford would definitely beat him. So, yeah, I'd say red flags for Ennis. But he got the job done, so you can't be too hard on him. I feel like another big talking point that has been going around this week in boxing is Wilder versus Joshua. Yeah, I've heard some rumours that a lot of people think that Malik Scott, Deontay Wilder's trainer, is just with him there for the money. And, a lot of people talk about the way boxing is an ugly sport, it's an ugly business. People love you when you're at the top. People just want things from you all the time. And maybe there's some truth in that, If Malik Scott didn't have the greatest career himself, is he just looking at Deontay Wilder like, oh, this guy's a cash cow? He wants all that money from Saudi. Has he really got Deontay Wilder's best interests at heart? I always feel like this whole Deontay Wilder situation is sort of like karma for his past trainer. I thought his past trainer knew Deontay Wilder really well. He didn't try and make him into anything he wasn't. He knew that, look, this guy's got a fierce right hand. We'll just get it off. I think there's definitely an argument that he could have beaten Fury in that first fight. I think if it's in England, for example, I think Deontay Wilder wins that fight. And I do sort of feel a bit hard. I feel like I feel a bit hard done by it that he didn't win that fight, really, because I feel like he does deserve, a big name on his record. Obviously, he's got Luis Ortiz, but, you do think for him to be like, oh, I was one of the greats of this era, you would like at least one of the big names on your resume. But then I guess if, he'd won the first Tyson Fury fight, maybe we wouldn't have had the second and the third fight, which were, a very exciting trilogy overall. So, as they say, everything happens for a reason. But for me, yeah, I just don't really want to see Wilder fight again. I think he's lost the sort of fight with him. There can be multiple reasons for that, right? I did a video ages ago talking about how we'd done ayahuasca, how it sort of just chills you out, mellows you. It gives you the sort of feelings that you get just before death, sort of like peace and gratitude, which is great for your mental health, but not great if you want to be a fighter, if you want to be a killer, if you want to be a warrior. And I had another theory that's not spoken about as much, that the knockout win over Robert Helenius actually really affected him, because him and Robert Helenius were good friends, so knocking him out sort of messed with his head a little bit. And maybe that's why he just hasn't had that fire in his belly since, because, I don't know, he felt guilty or upset after knocking out his friend. So there's lots of theories out there. Obviously, he might just be getting older. The opposition he's fighting have got better. So there's lots of reasons for Wilder's, demise or his fall off. But as I said, for me, people are talking about Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. For me, that's not much excitement there either, because Deontay Wilder just doesn't have any fight left in him. It's not like he's in competitive fights, but, just losing split decisions or getting, knocked out in the last rounds. He's losing comprehensively. But I think the Zhang fighter was like, he clearly doesn't want to be there. It feels like he's starting to fake the whole bomb squad stuff a little bit. And I just want to see him like sail off into the sunset, It's a great story. He was an entertaining champion. Maybe not the best on paper, but he was entertaining. He provided for his family, his daughter who was ill. I think it's a great story, and I just want to see him sail off into the sunset, I don't want to see him get knocked out again. I don't think it's good for him. He's getting older, the brain trauma. Maybe you fight an Otto Wallin, a Chisora, a Joyce, just to try and go out on a win. Because I think I said this before, that, you can give Deontay Wilder almost a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, because he never got a time to rebuild. He just kept losing, and then it was hard fight after hard fight. Fury, Parker, Zhang, these are all top 5 fighters, right? So, do we see what he's like there with someone in like the top 10, top 15, a Fabio Wardley maybe? I think there's definite questions, but as I said, it looks like all the fighters left him, so I think the sensible thing is to walk away. You got your money, you got your health, just enjoy your life, man. The next talking point is, who has been fighter of the year so far? I think there's 3 obvious contenders, really. I think it's between Inoue, Dubois, and I think Nick Bull deserves a shout as well. I feel like these guys have all been super consistent. All fought, 3 or 4 times this year. All been entertaining. All look good. Nick Bull, he's in wars. He's got such an entertaining style. Again, I don't know if he's going to have the longest career fighting like that, but it's great to watch, It was a ruthless demolition job with the Rios. The 12 rounds with Raymond Ford was a war, arguably fight of the year. And obviously Inoue just really consistent and just getting things done. I think for me, it's got to be Daniel Dubois. To finish, not just beat Miller, Hrgovic, Anthony Joshua. And before that, he fought Usyk. Like, come on, give the man his flowers. I think he has to be fighter of the year for me. Next thing I wanted to talk about was Shakur Stevenson. It looks like he's signed a deal with Riyadh Season, so he's going to fight on some of these cards in Saudi. And yeah, I'm not quite sure as to how I feel about Shakur yet. I feel like he's a little bit like Marmite. A lot of people love him. A lot of people hate him. Some people I feel like boxing purists really admire his art form, you know. I haven't seen any of his full fights yet, you know. So I feel like you have to be there live and like listen to like the full fight to get a real feel for the fight. But his highlights, the highlights aren't too bad, you know. For me, the most impressive thing is obviously his defense, but also his energy management. You know, he gets to round 12 with these guys and he looks absolutely fine. And his opponents are like sweating, they're on, you know, they're completely at the end. They've ran out their gas tank and he looks absolutely fine. So, as I said, the highlights don't look too bad, but a lot of people in the comments were saying things like, oh, you know, I was so bored watching this. What a snooze fest. So, in a way, I'm a little bit surprised Saudi are dealing with him because Saudi love excitement and entertaining fights, right? But maybe he needs someone like a Cordina or a Ramirez just to, you know, bring the fight to him and make him an entertaining fighter. You know, we saw it with Lawrence Okolie in the UK. Sometimes you need a great fighter just to bring the fight out of you. You know, Lawrence Okolie and Chris Benham-Smith. It was an exciting fight when, you know, Okolie can be in a lot of snooze fests. Another boxer career who's gone a little bit quiet right now is Vidal Riley. Obviously, the current English cruiserweight champion. He seems like he's a little bit out of options. I think he said a few months ago his plans were to fight Isaac Chamberlain, or if he couldn't get the eyes. No, he wanted to fight Isaac for the British, but he thought that Isaac would vacate and he'd end up fighting Chev Clark for the British. And that is what happened. Isaac did vacate, but I think Chev Clark just moved a little bit past the Vidal Riley level right now. You know, I think he's looking upwards, whereas Vidal would maybe be a step down. Maybe not like skill-wise, but career-wise, you know, if you're looking for those achievements. So this leaves Vidal a little bit out of options, you know. I feel like Chev Clark and Isaac Chamberlain were the two sort of next steps up that makes sense. The only other two names I can really think of are Jack Massey and maybe Richard Riagpur. You know, both coming off losses at the top level. Does that fight make sense next? I can't really think of anyone else who there is to fight. I feel like those two are the sort of the big names, and I'm sure Vidal would back himself to beat both those guys. So I think, for me, you know, I'd like to see those fights at least some point in the near future, Massey or Riagpur. I think Vidal said his rib injury that he got after the round's all healed up now. So yeah, excited to see where Vidal's career goes next. So as I was talking about Lawrence Okolie, I think he's got some sort of warm-up fight on this Magnificent 7 card that Frank Warren is doing with Pauls and Bentley being the headline. But what would be in line for Okolie after that? A lot of people have some concerns about his move to heavyweight, you know. A lot of Okolie's advantages at cruiserweight were, you know, his size advantage, being so much bigger than his opponents. Again, I think we'll just have to see, because it could be that one of the reasons that Okolie was a bit slow and boring at cruiserweight was just the weight cut really drained him, so heavyweight could give him more life. Or it could just be that when he's on more of an even playing field, when he's got guys he can't ragdoll, he might really struggle. So as I said, I'm definitely curious to see where Okolie goes next. I think the fight that makes the most sense for Okolie, if he gets through his warm-up fight on the Magnificent 7 card, would be Fabio Wardley. You know, what, at that British level, Okolie's been a cruiserweight world champion, so dropping down to British level at heavyweight sort of makes sense. Or you could do what Usyk did, fight Chisora after the warm-up fight. I think there's definitely options for Okolie, but I think Chisora or Wardley would be the most entertaining fights that make sense and aren't too much of a step up. Both fights, I feel both guys would talk pretty well as well. Another intriguing question to ask is, what are the current top 5 light heavyweights in Britain? Obviously with Ben Whittaker's slight fall off, I feel like there's definitely a question to be asked here. Number 1 is obviously Buatsi. I guess you pick Yard number 2, but it's just so hard to tell where Yard is, right? Because he's fought the top guys and then he's fought sort of lot lower level guys. So it's just hard to know where he's at. And then who else have you got? Craig Richards, Lyndon Arthur, Liam Cameron. I think obviously Buatsi's the best. I think Buatsi Yard has to happen. Oh, Hutchinson I've forgotten about as well. I think Hutchinson's got to be... Hutchinson could arguably be 2. I think Hutchinson's really good the way he beat Richards. So let me do it properly. What? Buatsi, Hutchinson, Yard, Richards. Arthur, and then what? Cameron and Aziz just below that, probably. Whittaker 8, maybe. I don't think you can put Whittaker in the top 5 right now. I think he needs a comeback win just so we can see where he's at. Because obviously, we need to figure out if he's not the real deal or if it was just a really off night against Liam Cameron. But we've got to see him come back until we can make that decision, I think. So obviously, I was talking about Daniel Dubois earlier. And a question to ask Daniel Dubois is, does Daniel Dubois deserve a gimme fight? Because that's like, I listed off the names he fought recently, right? Usyk, Miller, Hrgovic, Joshua, like, they're 4 pretty intense fights, right? And the same way we saw Nick Ball, like, he just dropped down like a few levels, you know, for his homecoming fight in Manchester, just not pushing himself to the extreme limit for once. Can Daniel Dubois do that? Because obviously he's got a mandatory in February. I mean, it would be insane, would it not, to take someone like Joe Parker for a mandatory. That's a risky fight, right? And you're losing the possibility of a unification fight if, you know, Turkey wants to make Usyk Dubois after Usyk Fury, if Usyk wins. But it looks like Dubois going to be fighting on the February card. I mean, does he just have the balls and go, you know what, I'll take Parker, I want to fight the best as a true champion? Or, yeah, does he drop down a few levels? I don't think he can drop down too low to say an Otto Wallin, because I think the fans will just slate that, you know, there's no excitement there. Honestly, I really wouldn't mind seeing him in against Fabio Wardley. You know, it's going to build up some excitement for the fans because Fabio Wardley comes to win everything. He comes to take your head off. He's got an awkward style, so it could be intriguing to see how Dubois deals with that. So honestly, I think let Dubois fight Wardley. You know, he deserves a little step down. It's only a mandatory. It's only a voluntary. It's not a mandatory defense. So I really wouldn't be mad if we saw Dubois Wardley in February. But it looks like, I think Warren doesn't want to do it for Wardley yet. I think he wants to build Wardley up a little bit sooner. So it looks like it might be Parker, Zhang, Bakole. But, you know, Zhang, Bakole, that's all difficult night works, right? If you're taking Bakole on a voluntary defense, that could be absolute madness. So I guess it'll just be, you know, what Dubois wants. He didn't take a lot of punishment, to be fair, against Joshua. It's only until sort of that one shot towards the end, which I don't think it bothered him too much. I think people exaggerated how much an effect it had on him. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what Dubois does in February. The next question I was going to ask is, what is my favourite division? I think, well, I'll answer my least favourite division at the moment. I think would be the welterweights, the, you know, 144s, the, you know, the Jaron Ennis, Brian Norman. That's Hitchinson. It's a very dead division. You think a few years ago that was a really exciting division when you had Crawford, Spence, Khan, Brooke, Porter. That division's dead right now. I do like the cruiserweights. I like Opetaya. I think he's really good. I do like Chris Billam-Smith as well. He's fighting this weekend. I'll talk about that at the end. Super middleweight scene's a bit quiet as well at the moment. Heavyweight scene's fairly exciting. You've got Benavidez, Morel, Boazzi, Bivol Beterbiev, that's looking decent at the moment. The lightweight scene, no one's fighting. Is it Haney, Tank, Garcia, Lopez, Lomachenko? No one's really fighting there at the moment. So I think at the moment you just have to say the heavyweight. It's the most exciting fights. You know, all these, you know, all the top 10 fighters, I think a lot of them can beat each other. So I think for the moment, I'll definitely have to say the heavyweights is my favourite division. The second to last thing I'm going to talk about is AJ Fury. For me, I think a lot of people are overthinking this whole AJ Fury thing. Oh, they've each got a few losses. Honestly, I don't think anyone cares. I think people just want to see it put on. And the thing is, like, neither fighter is over the hill. Both guys, it's not like with Wilder where it's like he's lost the fight. Both guys have got a lot of fight left in them, you know. Anthony Joshua went out on his shield against Dubois. Fury put up a good account of himself against Usyk. I don't think either of these guys are over the hill. Maybe they're just slightly past the prime. So for me personally, I'd love to see AJ Fury get it on. People are overthinking it massively. Who cares if they're like, not like at their peak? They're still about 80%. So get it on ASAP. Obviously, if Fury loses, you should get it on. I don't think it would be fair for Fury to win and then Joshua get that fight after losing to Dubois. But we'll see what happens in December. So next weekend's boxing is Latino night. Obviously, we've seen Oscar De La Hoya. He's been in the boxing news bit recently, right? Calling out Eddie Hearn, saying he wants to fight him. I proposed 6v6. Look, I like it. I think it's entertaining. it's nice that there's a bit of bad blood there. It's all great, good and well seeing Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren shake hands, but it's a bit boring, isn't it? Let's be real. We want a bit of drama. We want a bit of fight. I think Eddie Hearn versus De La Hoya, a 5v5 or a 6v6, so they fight each other, will be fireworks. But anyways, I'm getting off track. Latino night, Chris Billam-Smith versus Zurdo Ramirez. I don't know too much about Zurdo Ramirez. He's got a decent resume. He's beaten Joe Smith Jr., who's been in there with Beterbiev and Bivol. He lost to Bivol. I guess maybe he comes in a slight favourite against Billam-Smith, because you say he's probably been in there with slightly better opposition, being in there with Bivol. But I give Billam-Smith a lot of credit for his win over Okolie. I think Okolie's big, tough, and really awkward to defeat. I think Riakporhe's a decent fighter as well. I think Chris Billam-Smith he does well as an away fighter, he does well as an underdog. And being from Chris Billam-Smith's hometown, I'm a big Chris Billam-Smith hometown, so I will be rooting for him to win on Saturday night. And I think it should be a decent card. I'm happy it's not a PvP event. I think that would be, I'm not quite sure if it's good enough for a PvP fight, but it should be an exciting night for boxing. Chris Billam-Smith, generally an exciting fight. As I said, I don't know too much about Zurdo Ramirez, but you know, you can't really moan about a unification fight. And yeah, I'll be intrigued to see if either of these guys look like they could beat the fierce Opetaia at the moment. So yeah, that was today's video. A bit of catch up, answering some questions about boxing scene at the moment, previewing last weekend's and this weekend's boxing. Yeah, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see from this channel. Would you like longer style videos, shorter style videos, more boxing breakdowns? Thank you for watching. Goodbye.